The Point After Show.
He's going savage.
Run for your life!
And that was a disgraceful performance, in my opinion. We threw that game. We gave it away by doing that. We gave them the friggin' game. In my opinion, that sucked. Playoffs? What talk about? Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
The Point After Show.
I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody. The double champ does what the he wants.
The Point After Show.
Spikes in hell. Spikes in pee-wee hell.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to episode 3 of the Point After Show reboot. I'm here with Imodium Ed. I got Red Rocket Cavi and DJ Paulie No Clue, obvious by his fantasy squad, putting up a measly 200 points on the season. It's embarrassing. He's 0-2 in the league. I feel bad for him. I think, I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but the FF Advantage needs to change his Twitter handle. It's the disadvantage for sure. Smoke, what's going on with your squad, man?
Well, first I want to just correct a stat that you just threw out there. I'm 1-1, so I'm not 0-2.
He did beat me last week.
But there's no excuses.
I forgot. You guys had the battle of putting up 90 points.
I don't have that's
There's battle of the slow cookers.
Yeah. There's no getting around the fact that my team is struggling right now, and I have the least amount of points scored over 2 weeks, so it's getting scary.
So let me ask you, are you hitting the panic button on your team at this point in time?
Yes, I am. Here's why I'm hitting the panic button. Because I don't feel like I have a player on my team that can put up a mega week like an Aaron Jones this week, or, you know what I mean? I don't have a 49, 50-point guy on my team. The guys I drafted who I thought were going to be bell cows, or I thought were going to be targeted the most on the team or see the most touches, they're not right now as of through 2 weeks. They're not getting that. So yeah, I'm a little scared, and the panic button is fully engaged, and there'll be a lot of trades. And I will say we're recording this Tuesday night, so I have about 9 waiver requests out there right now, and hope just to get one of them.
Well, that's good to hear that you're finally admitting that your fantasy squad is junk. But Cavi, speaking of junk, we all thought your team was fantasy junk until Monday Night Gold struck. Alvin Kamara pulled your team out of the gutter and pulled off your first victory of the year. The Arnice bet is starting to look better and better each and every touchdown Kamara scores. What's your take on your squad this year? You think you have a chance to get out of the gutter?
I think I have my team figured out now. I was really hot on Austin Hooper. It's not going to happen, but I picked up Jonnu Smith, 25 points, 18 points. He's a major part of that offense, so I'm really excited about that. The trade with you for Ingram for
John Brown.
Worked out for me. I ended up getting 17 points out of him, and I'm happy with my team. I think I have it figured out. I need one of my two running back twos to pick it up a little bit and kind of step up. But aside from that, I'm real happy with my team. I even like my bench. My bench is solid. My bench is putting up 15 points each, so happy with it.
1-1 right now isn't too bad. You know, obviously you only have 19 more fantasy points than the FF Advantage right now. But Eddie has the best squad going into week 3 in this bunch. He's 2-0. He's coming off a big win last week.
No, I'm 1-1 too.
We're all 1-1.
Oh wow!
Wow.
What are you looking at?
Somebody just feeding you bad information or what?
Yeah, is this from? Are you looking at like 2018 league?
Yeah, my source is bad. Hold on.
This is what happens.
Hire that statistician right now.
Tommy gets nervous.
One more second. Hold on. Yep. All right. Yes. I am official. It is bad. I licked the window.
Yeah.
My bad.
Wow.
I don't know what I was talking about when it comes to.
Do you have Socks doing your stats for you?
Yes, my TV schedule. But
you're like Peter from the Brady Bunch. When the red light comes on, you're just like, you can't figure out what you're supposed to be doing, or what?
I don't.
Wow,
I don't understand.
All you young people don't get the Brady Bunch.
Not old enough.
No, yeah, you're about like 60.
Not at all.
But anyway, yeah. So Ed,
Google.
my bad. You're still in first place out of the four of us here. You're 1-1. You had a big point scoring this week. Obviously, Paul referenced your player of the week with Aaron Jones. He had almost 50 fantasy points. He's a stud. What do you like and dislike about your squad right now, Ed?
I like that I get to play Cabby this week. But I dislike that.
Says everybody.
No, my wide receivers are questionable. Deontay Johnson, he had a big week for me, but besides that, I had to play Henry Ruggs Munchin because AJ Brown is he's out maybe this year, maybe this week coming up too. I don't know. My running backs are strong though.
You don't really need wide receivers when you got Cam Newton putting up 45 and Aaron Jones putting up 50. So
that's not
you
going to happen.
You already outscored
week,
me with
though.
those two guys.
That's not going to happen every week. And I think, I was talking to Tom before this, I think Aaron Jones might be one of the more underappreciated running backs in fantasy. Like, look at it last year. I mean, yeah, he wasn't as consistent as some of the guys that went before him in the draft, but he had those blow up weeks that will, they add up too. And I think that, especially with Devontae Adams being a question mark this week coming up again, he's going to get a lot of targets out of the backfield. And
I think he's underappreciated on his actual team. Forget about just fantasy.
Yeah.
Well, I agree with that last year, right? Like they tried force feeding Jamal Williams touches last year, right? A lot of people had some question marks about Aaron Jones, with Jamal Williams still there, AJ Dillon coming into the mix, having some opportunities potentially. But yeah, Ed, no, he's been a stud this year. And I can't agree more that he is underappreciated and a workhorse for that team. I honestly think, it didn't happen, but I tried getting Lawyer Pete on the line tonight without you guys knowing, but unfortunately he couldn't make it. He had dinner with the in-laws just to talk about Aaron Rodgers, your man Aaron Jones, and the whole Green Bay Packers offense and what they might do this year, right?
I mean, as a part owner, I would like to hear what his thoughts are too.
And that's that. I had that built into the episode, but unfortunately, he can't make it with us tonight. But we had a couple other lousy squads this team. It wasn't only this week. It wasn't only the FF Advantages team that sucked. Lawyer Pete's team sucked, right? He put up a measly 89 fantasy points, and he had to shell out some dough to Morning Chubb, Tom Rivera, who's a listener of the show. $20, man. Rivera's team. Is he a real deal or what?
Yeah, he is a real deal. And Pete's team is in bad shape. It's like The Walking Dead over there. Last night we were texting and we were trying to figure out if there's anything to do for a trade. It wasn't like I went to his bench. Everybody's hurt. His whole team's hurt. It's kind of Paul. Your bench too is kind of scary looking, right? Every single person has a red letter next to them. They're either questionable or out.
Here, let me ask this: what's more scary looking, Paul's bench or his Bumble bench?
We tried that joke last week, but
everybody loved it. They know you beat the Bumble up, and guess what? You're an equal opportunity employer, so we appreciate that. But carrying on too from Rivera's squad and Pete's lousy squad, we also have Jamie's. Paul, are you going to buy into his team actually being good or no?
No, not yet.
Jamie's team's really good.
We talked about this. Like he has no depth. And here's the thing with fantasy football, you can have a good draft. The first few weeks might look great. And here's the thing. Everybody is one injury right now away from not having a good team. Maybe Rivera is probably different. I think Rivera does have the most stacked team. But everybody's one injury away from having a bad team. And here's the thing. If you look at Jamie's bench, it's very weak, very, very weak bench. So I don't think he has the squad to take it all the way. But again, it's anyone's game because of how the injuries. Week 2 is a perfect example of, Tommy, you were watching the games at 1:00. By like 1:15, there had to be 7 players injured.
By 1:15, Paul looked like Frosty in the green room. He was melting on the chair. I felt bad. I didn't know what the hell was going to happen. But his team was just falling apart at that point in time. But, enough about our league. We have
seven torn ACLs this week. It's never happened before in NFL history. 7.
It's going to be this way. Again, I think it's going to be this way most of the year. This is what happens when you give these types of athletes and the amount of, how ridiculously elite these guys are and what they can do every single day. It just puts it like in perspective of how like vigorous the NFL truly is on these players' bodies. And when they don't have the proper preparation for the season, this is what it's going to be. And to go back again, it's not just the injuries for fantasy football purposes. It's how well do you survive your bye weeks? Like once we start getting into the bye weeks and we start navigating those waters, that's where you separate the men from the boys, and that's where you separate the teams that drafted well versus the teams that actually can manage through a season.
I wish, Paul, I wish there was an IR spot on our benches.
We do have an IR spot.
Oh, we do?
We do.
Yeah. Good, Ed. Oh. I'm glad I passed the
No, I mean, Ed, we don't. I'm sorry. You're right.
Oh.
We'll have it next year, though. I'll let you know about it.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Keep me informed.
So the one thing I'll say about a lot of the NFL stuff is we talk about this every year. The NFL is always trying to push to limit the amount of preseason games and get more regular season games. And you always hear from the Players Association side where they're always talking about having less of a preseason, less training camp. But obviously, I think 2020 has proved a lot, not just to football, but to the world. But now talking football, it's proved that those training camps, those OTAs, and the preseason are necessities to keep these players healthy during the regular season. That's just my opinion on that. But let's move into some of our topics for tonight. Obviously, what we did last week was a little stock rising, stock falling, and trade forward, trade away. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to talk, obviously, stock rising, stock falling, but we're also going to mix up a sit of the week and a bounce back player of the week. So let's start off with let's go with Cavi tonight first. You talked about this guy a little bit last week as a tight end. You were able to pick him up. Cav, who's your stock rising and tell us a little bit why?
Yeah, Jonnu Smith. I was able to watch a lot of the Tennessee game on Saturday, and he's a big part of that offense. They're running screen passes to him. They're lining him up in the backfield sometimes as a blocker that they can then either hand the ball off to or dump to him. He's clearly just a really big part of that offense and definitely a security blanket. He's catching the ball, deep downfield. He's catching little dinks and dunks. They're using him every which way, and I don't think it's going to stop, at least not right now that I can see in the future. I wish I had played him this week, and I took my own advice last week. I still pulled out the win, but he would have sealed it for me. So I think moving forward, he went undrafted in a lot of leagues, and maybe he went unclaimed last week, but this week he's definitely not. So
do you have any fear of regression when A.J. Brown comes back to the lineup?
I don't. I really don't, because I think A.J. Brown's going to draw the harder coverage, and he's gonna find more openings still. I don't think you're going to double team or spy or focus on Jonnu Smith. So I think he's gonna hold strong. He's going to be a tight end one for the rest of the season. He's not going to have 25-point weeks every week, but I think he's going to be a tight end one. He's going to finish top 5.
Yeah, I like Jonnu Smith as well. I think he's a tight end one in the making. He could be one of these guys. The potential of one of these guys like a Kittle or Kelsey going forward next season or the year after, right? I'm not talking this season, but I think he definitely has the potential. Ed, I know you're a Rams fan always in the bottom of your heart, but who do you have this week on your stock rising?
I don't know if I'd go as far as saying I'm a Rams fan. I like to ram it home sometimes. If that's what you mean.
That's what I was getting at. I'm glad you brought us to that point. I didn't want to say that.
No, but we'll get into my.
And you were talking like your 10-foot putts, right?
Yeah, exactly. I like to ram them home. We'll get into my stock falling guy, but my stock rising guy on the same team, the Rams, Darrell Henderson, or Darrell, as some people call him. 34% owned in Yahoo leagues. Cam Akers got injured. Malcolm Brown, he outtouched Malcolm Brown this past week. Malcolm Brown had a finger injury, I believe, as well. But he had 14 touches this past week for 121 yards total, scrimmage yards, and a touchdown. I just see that performance, and he outtouched Malcolm Brown 14-11, I believe. it seems like he's going to be the guy going forward. Who knows with Akers' injury? I don't know how long he's going to be out, but Darrell Henderson's been there for 3 years now, I believe. He's been behind Gurley. I think he's gonna just start taking over in that backfield. They have a tough week 3 matchup against Buffalo, but after that, it's pretty easy. And I think, given the opportunity, I think he's probably the most well equipped and structured to handle that backfield at this point in time. Maybe Malcolm Brown and Cam Akers in the future, but right now I think Darrell Henderson has that backfield locked up.
Yeah, and like you said, Ed, as I could agree with that too, is if a guy's in a system longer than other players, he knows the flow, right? They've kept a lot of the same players in that offense, so he's definitely have the advantage over some of the other running backs there. Smoke, what do you like in this? Who's rising on your system?
So my rising stock, and this is kind of going off of what I typically like to do, but I'm actually going to pick a quarterback, and I'm going to go with Ryan Tannehill. I'm people that know me, I'm typically a streaming quarterback type guy, but I mean, you can't just look away from what Ryan Tannehill's been doing since he became the starter last year in Tennessee, and he continued this campaign through the first 2 weeks of this year. Much like Cavi said, he has Jonnu Smith down there. AJ Brown's still, nursing a bruised knee, but he'll be back, I think, next week. He's got all the weapons. He obviously has one of the better running backs for teams to worry about. So they do stack the box a lot with him. But for the first 2 weeks, he's been a quarterback one. I think he's the number 7 quarterback overall right now. Ryan Tannehill is the real deal. And what I like most about him is he's owned in less than 50% of leagues. And he gets Minnesota this week coming up. And if anybody's watched the Minnesota games, week 1, they had Aaron Rodgers. Last week, I don't even remember who they played, but they got shredded last week as well. Minnesota does not have defense right now. So I think Ryan Tannehill will he'll do what he does, and that's he'll put up 260 yards passing. He's very proficient. He doesn't turn the ball over very much. He'll probably get about 30 yards on the ground, and he'll throw 2 to 3 touchdowns. So I expect him to stay around his average of 20, 24 points a week. So if you have a quarterback that's not consistently putting that up right now, if you have a Baker Mayfield or a Tom Brady or something like that sitting on, that you've been starting, or even a Phillip Rivers that you've been starting, I would absolutely look to go and take Ryan Tannehill.
I like that play. And like you said, he's been a stud ever since he was signed up there in Tennessee, taking over Marcus Mariota's job. I think he's what brought them to a playoff caliber football team and franchise. I think he can do a lot of good things there as long as he stays healthy. 2 guys that I wrote down here are obviously one is a no-brainer, right? Jerick McKinnon. This guy's been a stud. They brought him into San Francisco to be a number 1 running back, but unfortunately he's had some injury problems. You look at what he's done on the limited touches this year. He's averaging 17 yards a carry. He's getting some receptions. He has 2 touchdowns on the season. With Mostert going down, Tevin Coleman being injured, I think this is somebody that everybody needs to own. Currently, right now in Yahoo leagues, he's only rostered by 27% of the teams. So if you could get this guy on a waiver wire transaction, I think you need to do that. The only fear I have right now is all the injuries out there in San Francisco might hinder some of his progress, be able to stack the box, but he's one of 2 that I put in this category. And I try not to talk too much, so I stacked 2 in here. I went with Myles Gaskin. You look at this guy down in Miami. They brought in Jordan Howard and Matt Breida to be workhorses, but you look at the numbers right now, Gaskin is out-touching them. He's last week he had 6 receptions. He was number 3 on the team in catches. He's more productive when he has the ball in the backfield running the ball. So that's another guy I would go for as waiver wire stock rising. Pick him up in any league that he's available for sure. So Ed, I want to bring to you on the stock falling. I know you talked with the Rams guy with Darrell Henderson. Who do you have with the stock falling? Obviously, it's another Rams guy, like you said earlier.
Yeah, Cooper Kupp. I think with not having a 3rd wide receiver option with the no Cooks this year, I think it's just hurting his stock. Like the Rams passing game in general hasn't really been the greatest. I know Robert Woods, I think he even ran one in this week, but I don't know. I just don't have faith right now in Goff or that passing the passing offense in general. Cooper Kupp, I think he has 11 receptions so far this year.
Yep.
Which I mean is good for PPR, I guess, but not where you probably drafted him with only. I don't think he has a touchdown, and I don't think he's reached 80 yards.
Yeah, he had 100 yards this week, but no touchdowns.
Yeah. So I think he had 100 yards scrimmage this week, 19 rushing, 81 receiving.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, he's your wide receiver 2, maybe. In a non-PPR or half PPR league that we have, he's not getting you that 10-point floor that you hope for after their first 2 weeks. I don't know. With the Bills coming up this week, it's going to get easier with the Giants, and then I think they have Washington, a couple other easier teams after that. But
Washington, San Fran, Chicago, Miami.
Still
a tough stretch.
It is tough, and I think it's gonna be tough for the Rams passing game. So I don't know.
He's only had 11 targets, not even 11 catches. 11 targets, 9 catches on the season.
Yeah, so I do think that not having a third wide receiver weapon like they had last year and the year before, I think that's hurting him. He's not getting those looks like he used to.
And that's where he made his bread, right? Was the amount of volume that he had. He was getting targeted a ton in games, catching a lot of balls, right? He was reliable hands. Obviously, he's got 9 catches on 11 targets this year. He shows that he can catch the ball, but like you said, he's one of those guys that needs the 10 targets a game at least. But unfortunately, at this point in the season, I don't know if it's because Robert Woods is a target machine and Tyler Higbee hogged all the touchdowns past weekend. Cooper Kupp, though, he did get paid, so who knows? Hopefully it pans out because I do have him in one league. Smoke, who do you have for your stock falling this week?
So my stock falling this week is AJ Green. So obviously I think, if you're an AJ Green owner, it's not, you haven't been crippled by him because theoretically, he was probably drafted as your 4th receiver based on his average draft position this year. But I think it's disappointing to know that you have, a guy that has so much potential. You have a quarterback that's, a rookie, but he's doing well as a rookie. He's throwing the ball a ton. And AJ Green is just not producing. He's got the 4th most targets in the entire NFL to date through the first 2 games, 22 targets. He only caught 8 passes. So horrible efficiency, worst efficiency out of any receiver right now currently on the Bengals. So you can't blame Joe Burrow for it. It's really just a lack of effort. And quite honestly, I think it's just AJ Green is getting older. Unfortunately, I hate to say that, but I watched the game. I saw the amount of energy he was exerting to try to get to these passes. The old AJ Green was not there, where he was able to extend and make some of these errant throws just look easy. 80 yards, 8 catches, no touchdowns. He gets the Eagles this week, who, say what you want about the Eagles, they're not winning right now, but they're stopping. They're stopping wide receivers for the most part. They're ranked 5th right now, as they're giving up the 5th least amount of points to wide receivers. So I don't see it getting better for AJ Green this week. I think he stays on people's benches, but quite honestly, I don't know what you do with him. He might not even be worthy of spot starts soon if he continues to keep putting up the productivity he's doing. The 22 targets is makes me feel okay, but you need to see some catches.
So the one thing I'll say to disagree on that is AJ Green is the one person that I think, not just one, but one of probably many that were impacted most by 2020, right? Is this guy's coming off of an injury that kept him out of most of last season with no preseason, jumping right into games, right? Is if you talk to NFL players, right, what they say is there's in shape and then there's game in shape, right? I just don't think this guy's game in shape yet, right? He hasn't had any games in over a year. He's kind of getting just back into the swing of things. Yeah, I understand he's 31 now, but I think this is a guy, each and every week he's going to do better and get better. But, with the Eagles defense, like you said, giving up the 5th least amount of fantasy points, he might be a sit-em this week in my eyes. But going forward, I kind of like A.J. Green, especially as he builds a chemistry with Joe Burrow. So, Kath, who do you have this week as your stock falling?
I have Will Fuller. So, Will Fuller didn't even see a target this week. Put up a big old goose egg, and he was getting stretched out the entire game on the sidelines. News as of today still is that there's no injury. But again, I think it's somebody else that you're seeing. First of all, Will Fuller is so accustomed and just injury prone that they're taking it really careful with them, and they're trying not to rush him. And without that preseason, they're not taking any chances with him because he made of glass. So I'm real nervous about him because he was drafted, as people's wide receiver 2, myself included, and he's the wide receiver 1 down there in with the Texans in Houston. But I'm real nervous about a guy that was drafted that high, throwing up a goose egg. And he played though, most of the game. He just didn't get the looks. Like he didn't get targeted.
Yeah, that's pretty sad for the one, especially after your boy D-Hop left Houston to go play with the Cardinals. There were over 150 targets that were supposed to be spread around, and everybody in this offseason was talking about, Will Fuller being that guy to fill the void. But unfortunately, like you said, Cap, 0 targets this week. Hopefully next week brings something better for the guy. But who knows what's
better, right?
And not only do better as far as getting more targets or targets in general, but this is a guy that's week to week on if he's going to stay healthy for the season, right? He's injury prone his entire career. Makes me a little nervous. But Smoke, you had something you were going to say. What's up?
So no, I would just say that to Cavi's point, that they're I don't know if there was an injury or not. He was seen stretching out on the sideline, but he tried to get back in, and they didn't want to throw the ball to him. And I don't know. I get nervous with the Houston Texans and Coach O'Brien. You get in that doghouse, and next thing you know, you're being traded. You wake up on Monday, and somehow you're no longer on the team. But yeah, I agree with Cavi. Fuller is I've always been down on him because of his inability to stay healthy. But Brandon Cooks on the flip side does look like the new emerging wide receiver 1 on that team, which I think, quite honestly, he should have been anyway.
Yeah, the only scary part about Brandon Cooks and Will Fuller as your 1 and 2, whichever way it goes, 2 and 1, it doesn't matter, is those two are super injury prone, right? Like I think Brandon Cooks is on like his 12th concussion. Unbelievable that the guy's still able to get healthy to play. It's kind of scary. I hope.
Imagine talking to Brandon Cooks in like 20 years. How that conversation would go.
It'd be terrible. I feel bad, right? But
yeah,
it's an ugly situation down there in Houston, trying to figure out who's going to fill that void of D-Hop. And it doesn't look like any of those receivers are ready to step up. The guy I have this week, that's my faller, is Ronald Jones, right? You look at what he's done down there in Tampa. Obviously, they got beat up versus the Saints week 1. You look last week, they got the win versus Carolina, which was good. The guy's he's had, I think, 24 carries this year. You look, he's only averaging 3.7 yards per carry. They get in Leonard Fournette. This guy, they didn't sign him just to become a name in the backfield and sell some jerseys, obviously, because nobody's in the stands. So I'm sure jersey sales are down. Leonard Fournette, you look last week, he had 12 carries for 103 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think Bruce Arians, obviously, he's not afraid to call anybody out. He already called Tom Brady out after week 1 and his performance. I think that Bruce Arians is quick to realize that Tom Brady isn't the Tom Brady of the Bill Belichick offense, and he doesn't have a coach to hide behind anymore. I know he's old up in his age, but this isn't a guy I was ever high on. I think Leonard Fournette's going to steal the show and pretty much be the starter there going forward, and kind of diminish Ronald Jones' role. So speaking of that, let me just jump right into the sit of the weeks.
Well, how come we don't get to ever rebuttal yours? You like going last, so we can't
first
get to talk
first of all, Tom,
well,
my
go
sit of the week, Ronald Jones.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I jumped to Eddie.
Well,
Paul doesn't pay attention. That's why I'm saying.
No, it's not. No, it's not that. It's just I like how you go last and then briefly go through your guy and then move on. Like nobody gets any type of rebuttal or anything on yours.
Well, the only person I would consider rebuttal from right now is Eddie, because obviously he's the only one ahead of me.
Well, there's no rebuttal. He's got him as
fantasy points,
you have him as a stock falling. So you guys are obviously on the same side. So I can understand why you'd want a rebuttal from the guy that actually feels the same way you do. Congratulations.
It's not a rebuttal. That's more of like
exactly.
an agreement.
That's my point. So I'm not. I was kind of going to make a joke. I didn't know as you were going through your monologue there, I didn't know who your actual stock falling was. Was it Ronald Jones or was it Tom Brady? Because you went on like a good tangent about how you still think that Tom Brady's not the GOAT. But I agree with you. Ronald Jones is obviously falling, but here's the thing. He could be right back in the driver's seat, because if you watch Bruce Arians, the only reason Ronald Jones lost snaps and carries to Leonard Fournette was because he fumbled. So the minute Leonard Fournette fumbles, Ronald Jones will be right back in.
Falling. No,
I agree with you. I think he's falling.
Look at the production. So it's not going to be one.
What was his production? He wasn't that.
Fournette had 12 carries for 103 yards.
He had one carry for almost 50 yards. So take that away, and his productivity wasn't that great over the rest of his carries.
Okay, so 11 for 50. That's still
that's
5 yards a carry.
I don't believe that that's accurate, but we'll go with it.
Well, you're the one who said 50 yards for one carry, so I was taking one.
If you look at the remaining part of his carries, we'll look it up, but I don't think he was as.
DJ Pauly, no clue, back at it again. Ed, who's your sit of the week?
Well, Pauly's getting out his Texas Instrument. I'll go with my sit of the week, which is what you just said about Ronald Jones. And
no, Eddie, real quick, Pauly, you forgot Pauly's pretty old, so Texas Instrument wasn't around. He's got to get out his abacus.
Okay, my bad.
Pushing tiles.
But yeah, I mean, just with Fournette taking over this past week, Jones saw 10 less touches than he did in week 1. I know he had his fumble, but there's also Peyton Barber in the mix. There's a lot going on there, and I just I don't know.
Plays for Washington.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Never mind that.
He's hurt.
So
Kevy.
Sorry.
Delete that part. Either way.
That's staying in there like you're going to take a poop.
You got to keep that in there now, especially since delete that part.
Sorry, the martini's kicking in.
That's why Tommy was cool. You rebuttaling them.
Eddie's got to poop.
Peyton Barber was there.
No, not yet. After this martini, though, I only have a couple sips left. No. Just sit of the week, Ronald Jones, until you see him get the carries that he saw in week 1. I wouldn't trust him going forward.
This is what I'll piggyback off of that, Ed, is if we still had the trade for, trade away segment, I'd be trading him away right now. Get whatever I can.
Of course you would, because you always trade guys away when they have no value. It's a smart play.
Yeah, well,
we already had this dumb conversation. We got to move on from your stupidity of how to trade a guy, because you're an idiot.
Yeah, I guess.
I trade people when they're doing their worst. You know who you know the trade? Can I tell you who the trade guy is this week? Just off topic. The trade guy this week is James Conner. Trade him right now while he had a big game. Trade him before he gets out and he gets like a hangnail and he's out again for another week.
All right,
it's a good trade.
Paul, who do you have as your sit of the week?
So my sit of the week is David Johnson. Eddie can attest this. He's been munching rugs for a bit here. David Johnson, after that, opening game where he looked like, oh, great, David Johnson's back. So great to see him having a resurgence here in Houston. He had a whopping 11 carries again for the second week in a row, this time producing 34 yards and no touchdowns. Granted, it was against a Baltimore defense. But guess who he has? Guess who he gets to go travel to in week 3? The Pittsburgh Steelers. So do I think that David Johnson is going to have any type of upside? More than likely, he's probably somebody's RB2 right now. I'm starting to look deep into my bench to try, and I'm not starting David Johnson this week. They don't give him the ball enough times to get him going. Quite honestly, he's not even getting enough catches to be worthy. And that's with Duke Johnson being out for the week. Not getting enough action in the passing game. And the Steelers, you saw what the Steelers did to Saquon, and the Steelers defense is just too good to be playing David Johnson against.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Obviously, I'm a David Johnson hater, but that's just me. You know how I feel about the guy. I drafted
I
him.
mean,
He's been.
with I have David Johnson. Yeah,
Yeah, I was
after
going to
week
say I'd like to hear
one.
Eddie's take on that with being a David Johnson owner.
Yeah, I mean, with after his week one performance, I think all David Johnson owners like me popped a boner. I mean, sorry for the girls; they probably got a little, wet in their pants a little bit. But, um, week two we saw what David Johnson is probably going to look like when he plays a tough defense, and this week coming up, Steelers' third run defense is solid. We saw what they did the last couple of weeks against running backs. I'm not starting him as my flex this week. I'm starting Melvin Gordon. Thank God I have him. But I think it's going to be matchup based going forward as my flex until bye weeks, obviously, between Melvin Gordon and David Johnson as my two running backs at my flex position. So this week, obviously, Melvin Gordon with no Lindsey. But even so, I would still be hesitant to start David Johnson just because of the tough matchup.
Yep. Yeah, I agree there. Cav, who do you have as your sit-em of the week?
Mark Ingram. So
Love him.
I guess love him while you got him. You got 1 week out of him. Half his yards this week came off of one run. He still didn't really see that many touches. He got out-touched by Gus Edwards again, and he still is not getting the goal line looks. So, maybe you get lucky and he's going to bust a 29-yard run on 4th and 1 every once in a while. But you're playing the Kansas City Chiefs this week, and it's not going to be the same thing. So I think you're going to come back to having a disappointing week from Mark Ingram. And I'd bench him if you have him on your roster. Trade him for somebody like John Brown, and you'll be good to go.
Nice play. But kicking off that Kansas City there is my sit of the week is Clyde Edwards-Helaire, right? You look at this guy and his production. Everybody was high on him. Paul wanted to take him early in the first round. Our niece and I made some trades to make that not, available for Paul to do. Last week, I think he had 10 carries for 38 yards, pretty pathetic. You look after week one, he wasn't getting any of the goal line touches, which was scary for the guy. Everybody was out talking about how they don't trust him at the goal line. And, just like we were just talking about before, is he's playing the Baltimore defense. So, it's a stout defense that's going to stuff him everywhere along the line throughout the entire field. But if he's not getting goal line touches, what does Clyde Edwards-Helaire have to offer for the team? So he's my sit of the week. Paul, you look like you have something you want to say up there. So any rebuttal on this one?
I mean, my rebuttal would be, do you really sit Clyde Edwards-Helaire? He was a first-round pick for pretty much everybody in fantasy. I mean, who do you sit him for? Do you sit him for, give me a reasonable. What's that?
Jerick McKinnon, Myles Gaskins.
You're gonna sit him for either of those two guys right now. You have both those guys sitting on your bench, and you have Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You're gonna sit him this week to start one of those two guys.
I'll take a bet with you right now that Jerick McKinnon has more points than Clyde Edwards this week.
I'll take that.
All right, we'll bet a case of beer.
Sounds good.
Shave your heads.
No. Listen, this is the first bet of the fantasy point after show reboot. You saw some of our crazy bets in the past with pies in the face.
Listen, we could do a Saturday night Edward 40 hands if you want.
Yeah, I'm in for whatever you want to do. We'll talk offline on that.
All right.
But just to move it forward, because we're squeezing in our time. Let's talk about bounce back player of the week. I know Paul had this guy as his stock falling. I kind of rebutted against it. But Cavi has this guy again that's popping up on our sheet here. Cav, who do you like as your bounce back player of the week?
I like AJ Green. You kind of stole a little bit of my thunder and talked about it after Paul had him. But like you said, he's an older guy. There's difference between football shape and in shape. So I think he just needs a little bit more time to come around. He's also somebody that's been used to playing with a different quarterback for a while. And he's got a new rookie quarterback there. I don't think they've fully had a chance to develop that chemistry yet. And he's, he hasn't had the easiest road so far, but his next 2 to 3 weeks, he has much more favorable favorable matchups, and I think he's gonna turn it around. Just needs Joe Burrow and him to start clicking. He's getting the targets. He's just they're getting some of the passes are getting forced to him. I watched that Browns just played on some weird next level the other night, and I think AJ Green's going to bounce back from it. He's too good to not. He's only, like you said, he's only 31. Wide receiver years, that's not running back years, but I think he'll be okay moving forward. I think it's going to take maybe another week for the chemistry to really start clicking, but I think once it does, he'll be fine.
Yeah, I like him. I think I know Paul talked about playing the Eagles this week and having the 5th toughest defense for fantasy players, receivers. I think he finds the end zone this week, starts building that chemistry with Joe Burrow, who I drafted this year. I think he's playing well for a quarterback in a system where quarterbacks haven't really played well in the last couple years. Paul, I know you probably have something you want to say here about AJ Green. Go ahead, give your.
No, I
final
was gonna throw an over under at you guys for AJ Green, since you two seem to be higher on him than I am. I'll give you guys an over under 74 yards
this week.
Under.
Over 74 yards.
Yeah.
Take that. I'll take the over.
Tommy?
I think it's going to be super close. I'll let Cavi take that one. But here's my thing is I wasn't saying he was going to have huge yardage. I talked about him finding the end zone. So I think he has double-digit fantasy points this week, whether it's, 5-6 catches, 60 yards and a touchdown. I'm not sure about this.
You take a secondary bet that he doesn't get a touchdown this week?
Yeah, I'll take that.
I'm going to take under 74 yards, no touchdowns for AJ Green this week.
Okay.
So
I think he'll have a touchdown, and I think like right around 80 yards.
Okay.
And I think the Eagles stink. They've been playing okay. They've been hanging in games, but they're not good by any means. And their
secondary is good. Their secondary is good. Their offense is struggling.
They haven't played anybody that's been playing a hurry-up offense against them, though, like Cincinnati's playing. So I think it's going to be a little bit different. So I think he'll be good there. And then he gets another he gets an absolute cakewalk the next week against Jacksonville. And then
Jacksonville's defense is legit. You got to reread that, because I'm telling you right now, look up Jacksonville's defense.
I think
everybody thought Jacksonville's defense was going to be a cakewalk this year. They're not. They're there to play.
So I think
Derrick Henry.
So I
have those 3 bets in the Google Doc, so everybody could take a look at them so we remember them. I know Paul's been drinking scotch, I think, since noon.
Nimble Giant.
Obviously,
shout
his
out
hot takes are junk.
So I think AJ Green has a cakewalk against the Jaguars, then he runs into a wall against the Ravens, and I think he'll have another good week against the Colts. So I think he's a good. He's on his way up. He's going to have a tough week against the Ravens, but I think he bounces back the rest of them, and then he'll get back. He's maybe not a wide receiver 1 this year, but he's definitely a wide receiver 2, definitely a wide receiver 3. So if you're in a league like ours, he definitely has a lot of value.
Definitely a wide receiver 2, definitely a wide receiver 3. Per Cavi.
Exactly.
I agree.
Worst case scenario, he's a wide receiver 5.
Yeah, worst case, he's a flex.
Deep flex, super flex. You can play.
Yeah, exactly.
Worst case scenario, he catches balls in Cincinnati. So let's jump to Eddie. Eddie, who's your bounce back player of the week? And tell me a little bit why.
I think I got a bug bite. I think I'm going to go with Allen Robinson here.
I thought you were going with the poop thing again.
Oh, no.
No,
it hasn't.
Just tell us about your bug bite.
The martini hasn't hit me yet, but it's coming, I think. But Allen Robinson hasn't – you drafted Allen Robinson probably as your number 1 this year.
Yeah.
He has not produced. And he's had 9 targets in those last 2 weeks. And I think he has like 3 and 5 catches or something ridiculous like that. He has the Falcons this week. I think he's going to have a big week this week. I know there's a lot of probably frustration for fantasy owners that right now with Allen Robinson, but having 9 targets in his first 2 weeks, he didn't do much with targets.
Them. Eddie, I'm sorry, he has 9 targets per game in the first 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, total. Okay. Or I mean per game. That's what I said. Gotcha. 9 targets in each game. Gotcha. That's what I meant. But Those 9 targets, I think, are going to result in possibly more this week. We saw the shootouts that the Falcons have had so far this year, and their secondary does not look good. So I expect Allen Robinson to just be a beast this week, and I guarantee this is an Eddie guarantee. It's in the bag. An Allen Robinson touchdown this week.
Paul, you taking
Eddie
that
guarantee?
bet too?
No. I won't take that bet because I actually like Allen Robinson with Eddie. I'm on Eddie's wagon playing Atlanta, and you play every receiver against Atlanta. And listen, I'll take 9 targets to Allen Robinson all day long over 9 targets to AJ Green right now. So give me Allen Robinson.
Do you think any of the Allen Robinson regression is based kind of on all the drama going on there with him? Like he was.
I want to trade. I don't want to.
Yeah, I want to trade. I don't want to be traded. I want more money.
I think
I don't want you to use the franchise on me. Like they just literally like, you're here.
I think that's media hoopla. Personally, I think that honestly, I think it's
he was
just
tweeting
that. Well, I think that. What's that?
It was him. He tweeted it and then he erased the Bears from all social media.
Cavi, that's social media. That's
media.
He
didn't. He took the. Yeah, I don't know. His agent came out and said he never asked for a trade. He just wants to be paid as a wide receiver.
That's his agent's job to do.
But here's the thing.
Like
at the end of the day, I will say this. He's a great receiver, and I think quite honestly, it's the offense just has not really been clicking yet. They haven't really got an identity yet. I think Mitch Trubisky is manageable as a quarterback. I don't think they did any upgrade for themselves by getting Nick Foles, but I think that as long as Trubisky stays in there, Allen Robinson will continue to get his targets. And listen, he's been a wide receiver 1 last year. I think he was pretty damn close to wide receiver 1 the year before that. He gets 100 plus target, 130, 140 targets every year. I think he's going to be fine. But I'm in the same boat. I'm nervous, but I think this is his bounce back week. So I'm with you, Ed.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And I think this is a good time if you want to send a trade to someone that has Allen Robinson to try to get him. I think
Eddie, I think it's fair to say if he has 9 targets, 3 catches, and 33 yards in week 3, he may end up on our Google Doc again next week in one of the other categories.
As a falling stock?
He's a falling stock. At that point, you start getting worried.
Hey, keeping with usually I keep mine to the last, but keeping with the Bears, I'm going to take Tariq Cohen, right? This guy, he just signed an extension with the Bears. He was a target machine the last couple of years coming out of the backfield. Up until this point, he only had 3 catches on the season. Even his carries, he's only had 12 carries on the season.
I'm sorry, Tom, could I interrupt you real quick? Speaking of coming out of the backfield, I gotta go.
Ed, it was good seeing you, buddy.
Yeah, catch you guys next week.
Hey, squeeze that one for us. So yeah, Tariq Cohen is the man, right? Not really the man. David Montgomery, Paul, he's been helping you out. How do you follow that up?
I don't. I lost train of thought with the speaking coming out of the back.
There's Eddie's line of the night, but I'm going to go with Tariq Cohen.
Yeah, we already said that.
I think this guy actually has a big week this week. Playing the Atlanta Falcons, they've been giving up a lot of points to the running backs that they've faced so far. They've given up the 10th most fantasy points against running backs. I think both Montgomery and Cohen have big weeks, but I think Cohen, total maybe 100 yards combined, whether it's catches or rushes this week. Potential touchdown, maybe 4 catches. So I think he's a good flex play if you guys have him on your bench. He is definitely my bounce back player of the week. And then, Paul, you have anything you want to say about that? Anybody?
My concern for Cohen is that I think people drafted him with the thought that he'd be seeing many more targets than he's seeing, and definitely getting more catches than he's been getting. My concern is if he doesn't start seeing more targets and getting more catches on a per game basis, his value is next to unstartable, even in a flex. I think, again, going back to like Allen Robinson, I think when you have a high-powered offense like Atlanta and, their defense is suspect, to say the least, I think this is an opportunity for him to, if they have any value, this will be the week that he comes out. And I don't disagree with playing him as a flex if you need a spot start here. he has no value if he doesn't get any catches. So he needs to ramp that up.
Yeah, you look at the last 3 seasons prior to this one, he's averaging almost 70 targets or 70 catches a year, right? And that's good if you're in a PPR, a half-point PPR league. They're not going to just sign a guy not to do what he's done in the past, right? So you have to figure they're eventually going to start passing this guy the ball. Otherwise, what's the point? Is it going to sign and trade? But
you really think that that's true? I feel like their head coach is like the alter ego of Adam Gase up there in the Jets. I think they're both just shitbags that don't know what the hell they're doing. Quite honestly, just my opinion.
Yeah,
the alter ego would be a non-shitbag that does know what they're doing, though.
Who's that?
An alter ego would be a non-shitbag.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So he is he's just basically his mirror image.
Yeah, there you go.
That where we should have went with that. There you
got
go.
that one there.
I appreciate that.
So, Paul,
Check.
Speaking of bounce backs of the week, hopefully you can have a bounce back of the topic here because you're struggling. Who do you have as a bounce back of the week?
I'd like to think I have myself as a bounce back of the week because I get to play a Lawyer Pete this week coming up, but chances are he'll probably beat me too. So my player bounce back of the week is going to be T.Y. Hilton, who I'm pretty positive at this point everybody that's got T.Y. Hilton on their team is frustrated and fed up and just cannot fathom starting him. But I think this is going to be the week that you want to have him in your starting lineup. He gets to play the Jets. The Jets defense is susceptible to the wide receiver, similar to what I was talking about earlier with another team. But he's only had 7 catches in the first 2 weeks, and he hasn't even broke 100 yards total for the first 2 weeks, let alone 100 yards in a game. But Paris Campbell going down, I think, can only help him. My biggest concern. Tell me. It's not a big concern. It's actually helping. Let me back up. Jonathan Taylor, I think, actually helps T.Y. Hilton's value here because I think they've established that they have a legit running back now, a real threat in that backfield, and I think that will help T.Y. Hilton get a little bit more open. T.Y. Hilton just needs to catch the ball and he needs to hold on to it. He's had way too many drops so far, and I'm not sure if it's just he's just not used to. He's not used to Phillip Rivers in the way he throws the ball. If you watch Phillip Rivers throw the ball, it's very
unorthodox,
and that ball coming in as we've played football and we understand how to catch a ball, and sometimes when that ball's coming in with a different spin on it, it takes a little bit. And we've talked about this a number of times. You don't have any offense or OTAs. You don't have any off season to get used to it. So I'm hoping that that's all it is with T.Y. It's just that he just needs to continue to get reps with Phillip Rivers, but I really do think that with Campbell, with Paris Campbell being out, sky's the limit for T.Y. this week against the Jets. So I think he goes for over 100 yards for the first time in the season this week.
If you can catch a wrench, you can catch a ball.
That is true. A la dodgeball.
Yep.
I agree.
Start throwing wrenches at him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about time this guy shows out, right? He needs to start building. Again, it goes back to what we talked about earlier tonight on the segment, is building that chemistry with your quarterback. As we talked about Joe Burrow not being able to build chemistry with AJ Green, I think you have the same situation here, right? No offseason, no preseason. I don't think T.Y. Hilton, and like you said, Paul, is Phillip Rivers has an unorthodox throw and spiral, and even coming out of the quarterback's hand is where a lot of the receivers actually see the ball, especially for guys like T.Y. Hilton, right? He's a deep ball receiver. He's not going to be flashy with his routes and cut you on slants. He's more of a deep threat. So I hope it pans out. I hope you're right. This is the first time, right? This is the guy I have on my squad. So hopefully T.Y. Hilton works out. Does anybody have any closing remarks for this segment?
Patches O'Houlihan would disagree with everything you just said.
Patches O'Houlihan. Duck.
No, I mean, I'm excited for week. I can't believe I'm saying I'm excited for week 3. Let's hope for less injuries in week 3 than we saw in week 2 for the players' sake, but more importantly, for fantasy football owners' sake.
Yeah. And hey, everybody out there, if you have any questions, issues, concerns, you could always hit us up at, Paul, what are you at Twitter?
At the FF Advantage.
Cav?
At Caviston Joe.
Ooh, I like the change up there that you threw at us. And I'm at tlip_the PAS like usual. You could also hit up the Point After Show's Twitter account. We're there to answer any questions, issues, concerns that you might have going into the weekends, into the Thursday night games, even though this one's pretty lousy. Hit us up on iTunes, SoundCloud, Facebook. You could also check us out on YouTube. Anything you have to say for the fans, Smoke?
You can also hit up Eddie at Double Flush and CourtesyFlush.com.
Courtesy Flush.
But no, like I said, James Conner, get on the trading block, get rid of him.
Last little shout out. I want to thank Walt and Rivera. Always listen to our podcast. Every day these things are posted, they always reach out. So thank you guys very much. We appreciate it. If you made it this far, as Paul always says, thank you. Have a good night, everybody.